A lot of people chiming in the comments also to say this is their favorite film of the franchise. Also, director Alfonso Cuarón's only film in this franchise. Do you guys think he should have done more? Did he do the right thing by leaving and doing one and done?
I think the biggest plot hole is that Harry Potter takes place during the years 1991 through 1998, and not a single soul talks about Michael Jordan and the Bulls' historic run.
You know what? I would like to address this actually.
Welcome back to Behind the Breakdown on the Breakroom. We are talking about Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. We broke down this movie on the new Rockstars channel, and we're going to go deeper into the things that we didn't talk about, the things we got wrong, the blood, sweat, and tears and time turner effort that we went into this, and we'll just get into all of it. I'm Erik Voss. Joining me today is Gina Ippolito and John Costa. Welcome, Gina and John.
Hi. Guys, we just had our Thanksgiving work potluck, so we're full of mashed potatoes and pastries.
Yeah.
Roll us out of here. Roll us out of here.
There.
I was in Askaban during the potluck.
No!
And then I escaped to come kill Harry Potter.
Wow. Good for you. Not many people can do it, but you did it.
I did it.
Wow.
But under that mass murder is a heart of gold.
That's right. That's right. I'll die in 2 movies. It's fine.
Spoiler.
Sorry.
John's our godfather. Don't forget to check out nerdright.shop. That's where there is a Black Friday sale going on right now where you can buy one, get another 50% off. And that's a great deal, especially if you're holiday shopping right now. Also, guys, the Breakroom almost has 100,000 subscribers.
Whoa.
John, how does it feel? How does that feel when you started the channel just a little over a year ago?
So silly. Yeah. we it's really cool, and we're really thankful. And you know, yes, we started this channel a little over a year ago. But this channel does not exist without Evan and his incredible work over the last, I left the Breakroom full time, I think about a year ago. So yeah, without
nurturing it, giving it tiny kisses,
but really Evan has been giving it the big kisses. And I think we're both really proud of this channel and want to see it hit that 100K because Who knew?
Because what do? We're doing hot sauces or disgusting.
Oh, I forgot that Evan and I were going to be in trouble when we hit 100,000 subscribers. Thank you for reminding me.
That's
I'll do.
That's how we need to motivate the viewers.
I'll do anything for
100,000.
I'll do anything.
You could say that for $1 million.
No,
I'd do anything for $1 million.
I'll do anything.
He's already said it. This is legally binding. I think Evan said he would drink a hot sauce, and you said you would eat something gross.
I will do anything. I want that little plaque.
Put your suggestions
I want
in
that
the
little
chat.
plaque.
Yeah, John and I have spent a long time talking about how much we need this little plaque. See, if we get the plaque also gets a tiny kiss. So come on.
We'll tiny kiss the plaque on it.
Yeah.
Put your suggestions in the chat of what John should do if he's willing to do anything.
I'll do anything.
Yeah. If
we hit 100,000 subscribers this year.
Let
me be really
my God.
You're going to get me in March.
I mean, if we get it in 2024, listen, maybe we'll do a version of the 24-hour stream. Not the best version of it, but I just stay up for 24 hours? Yeah, let's try it.
It'll be like the chair at the RNC in 2012.
Wow, what a
That's a real deep cut.
Just Eastwood.
There's just not going to be anything there. It'll just be 24 hours of an empty chair.
But yeah, and shout out, of course, to everybody who have been watching since day one, on the new Rockstar channel. And have followed us over to Twitch. A lot of regular chatters, a lot of people who've been sending in a lot of gift subs, like Obi-Wan Kenobi, who shout out, I missed at the earlier, but it's always giving out gift subs at the beginning of every stream. A lot of great people chatting there, so catch us on there when we're not live on YouTube. But otherwise, should we get into some of the things we found when we revisited the movie?
As the questions are still rolling in here, I want to know from you two, what was your favorite thing about revisiting Prisoner of Azkaban, the film?
That's a good question.
Can I go first?
Yes, go first. Please go first.
The poop.
Wait, Buckbeak's poop?
Buckbeak's poop. I thought, I've seen this film a lot of times, so revisiting it didn't feel particularly fresh. It kind of felt like going back to an old memory or whatever. But that was the silliest little dumb detail. It's just like animators, man, the best. what are you doing? What are you doing? You have no time to do any of this stuff. And they're like, we're going to animate this hippogriff doing a poop in the background. Yeah. I thought that was so funny. So it's that, that background detail, and then the other background detail that was your favorite that maybe I'll let you mention. Oh. I don't know if you remember.
Oh, the Hermione's hand?
Yes.
Yeah, so weird. Just such a weird thing. And, like, I don't think Cuarón has ever acknowledged it. We have a helicopter going overhead right now.
They're coming for us.
They are going for us right
They
now.
said Breakroom, no 100K subscribers.
That's right.
They said, we heard that John Costa said he'd do anything.
But yeah, Hermione's hand at the beginning of the Time Turner sequence is just so subtle and so weird, but it just shows like the attention to detail. I really just think it's there just because like we cut to wide, and it's just such a weird cut to wide that it is not necessary for that moment. And I think they just did that in this subtle way. Now, if you were to precisely line it up, that's not where Hermione's bandaged hand is in the later shot. She's just on a slightly more inside part of she's further out on the edge of it. But I think they still put it there because just to establish that someone is there in that moment. But like, man, no one would notice that unless you watch it later on the Blu-ray release. That's not my favorite detail though. I think my favorite detail is I'll let you go first, Gina, because I did ask you.
I'm trying to think, and there's so many. I think like I don't know if it's a detail, but the weird tone of this in terms of like when they are at the leaky cauldron is where you really notice it first. When they're like, Tom gets a redesign and he's like offering like rolls in like a weird way. It's like such an unnecessary weird thing, and I love stuff like that. I love just all the weirdness at the leaky cauldron, offering the pea soup and like, you know, people wiping down tables. It's just such a weird place to be, and I love that it's not playing it as straight as the first two movies. It's like, hey, it's gonna be dark, it's gonna be weird, it's gonna be unnecessarily weird in parts, and I loved it.
Yeah. I think my favorite thing is just like the way Cuarón uses practical magic. And it's my favorite thing about the Cursed Child play is like if you're going to do a story about magic, hire some magicians. And he did. He hired some illusionists and magicians. The way the Mortar's map folds was designed by an illusionist who makes a cameo later in the Three Broomsticks. Just the shot in the leaky cauldron, that's Cuarón's one of his long takes in the movie of just when Arthur Weasley is talking to Harry, and there's so much happening in the background from a practically floating tea kettle. There's I don't know why I forgot to mention this in the breakdown, but there's like snake charmers in the they're blowing a flute to raise a rope, and that's all done practically. The guy who wipes the table earlier in the leaky cauldron, he tucks the wine bottle in the cloth. I just think it's like really cool, and you don't see it in the later Harry Potter films as much. They do some like tricks of the camera, but I think Cuarón was obsessed with trying to get one in every shot of the movie in ways that Mike Newell and David Yates didn't really want to challenge themselves as much with. And we're about to shoot our breakdown for Order of the Phoenix, and David Yates's aesthetic would define the rest of the series and the Fantastic Beast films, and in my opinion, a lot of the way nerd IP would depict a blend of practical environment and CGI magic or technology, and that it's just like a glowing colored energy that is reflecting off of the characters' faces, and otherwise their world is super desaturated and kind of ugly. And they did that, I think, to contrast how cool the VFX would look. The MCU looks that way. The Disney Star Wars movies do that. They all kind of look like this. And I'm like, it's been knocking my brain for the entire time I've been a YouTuber, being like, how did this start? Like, where did this start? Movies did not used to look this way. And I think it really is Order of the Phoenix. I think it is David Yates' Order of the Phoenix.
Yates!
Hollywood villain.
Yeah, and there were a lot of movies that were doing that at the time, but like the first Iron Man didn't look that way. But then later in like the Thor movies, Kenneth Branagh brought that into the Thor movies. Whedon brought that into the MCU. J.J. Abrams brought it into Star Wars, and it's just like they all kind of look like that, and I'm not crazy about it. So I liked revisiting Prisoner of Azkaban because like Cuarón didn't do that.
Well, and I also think like Cuarón's sometimes you watch a movie and you sit there and you think the filmmaker sat down and thought about every single aspect of every single shot in this film. And other times you get a director or a project just doesn't call for that, right? Like, it's fine to do, you're doing My Dinner with Andre or whatever, which is a great film, but you don't need to think about like every single shot because it's you know, it's screenplay first, right? But one of the things that I loved about this movie too is that, like, we talked a little bit about how many televisions the Dursleys have in their household to keep Dudley like occupied, and I loved the detail of like, oh, he doesn't even notice what's happening to Marge until a button hits him in the face or whatever. But also, I loved during that sequence, the Muggle television that they have on is like a sitcom, so you get like a laugh track happening when Marge is ballooning up that like you otherwise, like, it's just so smart to have like that in the background playing on television, because you can't like put a laugh track in your Harry Potter movie unless you have that diegetically playing in the background. I love that. The other thing that I love that you pointed out in the breakdown here is that, like, the geography that Cuarón establishes of Hogwarts and Hogsmeade and all these kind of like tertiary locations, I didn't realize how that this was the film that established those locations, right? Like, as someone who, you know, was it earlier this year? No, last year played a good amount of Hogwarts Legacy. Like, that video game had to kind of stitch all these different locations together, and you get a feel for where all these places are, like the clock tower and things like that are really pivotal to future movies that are established here. And I loved the design and the choices that he made, and just to add to that castle, it's all beautiful. And I didn't realize that it started with this film.
You know, kind of expanding on some of these like specific details about like the craft. Malishka from the Twitch chat saying the opening long take in this movie is magnificent. And the Blue Danube saying, do you guys have any thoughts on the incredible score by John Williams? Buckbeak's Flight is what I still listen to on this day.
Buckbeak's Flight, I think, is incredible. And this is the last movie that John Williams scored for the Harry Potter films, but they do sample Hedwig's theme throughout and Harry's theme throughout. Original for this movie is Buckbeak's Flight, which is incredible. I think it is, as much as I love it, it's a somewhat lesser version of his Superman theme in his Hook Peter Pan flight theme. To me, whenever I hear it, I get it mixed up with dun, 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 dun. But in some ways, it is just beautiful. It feels more like outside world Scotland over a loch. And that's what I love about it. It is transportive. I think John Williams' best work, and we talked about this in the breakdown, is A Window to the Past, which is something that I did not realize until I was doing research for this film. It's such a specific, longing score that's in a minor key, but it is just like not necessarily negative. It's just kind of wistful in a way. And it's the sound of Harry's connection to his parents, but it changes throughout the film. And it's almost a false victory the first time he conjures a Patronus shield against the Boggart, where it's just all with like powerful horns. But like as the film goes on, he needs that connection to his parents almost less. Like he discovers a power within himself, so that it's almost like, and we'll get to this in the comment section, it's probably what most of you and Grace in the comments came after me about. It's kind of the concept of that we see in Game of Thrones of kill the boy so that the man may live. Like you have to let the past die a little bit. You have to, part of maturity is mourning the death of your childhood and properly getting past it. And so it's kind of a battle that we all fight all the time, a mixture of rose-tinted glasses and nostalgia as we peer through these windows to our past, but also understand at some point we have to close the window and face our present and our future.
Not me, that's why I do this job.
Popping in to say, one of our sponsors this week is Via, makers of premium federally legal cannabis products. This holiday season, unwind and recharge with Via. Whether you're enjoying a quiet evening at home or embracing the festive cheer, Via's premium THC and THC-free gummies will help you find your perfect holiday balance. I, for one, am looking forward to treating myself to an Elevate gummy on Thanksgiving and burrowing into a bowl of stuffing. All of Via's products are grown indoors in state-of-the-art facilities and harvested at peak THCA levels to emphasize a natural aroma and flavor. They add strains to their selection every week, so there's always something new to check out. Via has THC and THC-free gummies, vapes, topicals, and drops, all of which are crafted with the highest quality hemp sourced from trusted, independently owned American farms. Plus, Via legally ships to nearly all states in the US in discreet packaging directly to your door with a worry-free guarantee. No medical card required. This holiday season, gift yourself some peace of mind. If you're 21 and over, check out the link to Via in our description. For a limited time during the holidays, Via is offering 25% off site-wide, plus up to 50% off select items and bundle. It's a pretty good deal. And if you're hearing about this ad post-sale, you can still save by using code BREAKROOM for 25% off. After you purchase, they ask where you heard about them, and please let them know you heard it from the Break Room. This holiday season, enhance your everyday with Via. All right, back to you guys. A question from HBasta13 from Twitch. Has Gina or have all of you noticed more changes in the books from going from books to movies as the movies have gone on? I feel like this is maybe, we're talking about a little bit of a tipping point for the movies where things are about to change in a big way.
Yeah.
How do you notice it diverging from the source material? Are we noticing more changes, less changes? How are we
more
feeling?
changes for sure. I think none of the directors hewed so closely to the source material as Chris Columbus did. The first and second movies were exactly like the books to the point where like the second book is Chamber of Secrets is like the second shortest book but the longest movie because he just put everything in there. And then as they go along, I think especially Cuarón veered away from it. Goblet of Fire was like, it all sort of happens in the same order but the details are different. And then as you get into those last three, there's so many changes. There's characters that never make it in there, like anything with a house elf, they were like, let's give it to Neville instead. Neville did it, not Dobby.
They always give it to Neville.
They always give it to. They're like, who's the most like Dobby? Neville.
It is. Well, and the first three books also are like roughly the same length, and then it's Goblet of Fire that's like, holy shit, this is like now sort of more of a young adult book.
Yeah.
They like almost double the page count, it feels like. I think Order of the Phoenix is the longest book, but Goblet of Fire is right up there. Goblet of Fire.
Oh, well done.
You should have won this next week.
Ooh, yeah, that's good. Speaking of changes, Snowden94 on Twitch asking, doesn't Gryffindor win the Quidditch Cup in this book? Shame we didn't see that.
Wait, what book? Sorry,
the third book.
Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yes.
Oh, I think because a lot is made of the fact that like Harry loses that first match, like Cedric gets the snitch because the Dementors fly in. Yeah. Cedric, we think of him in the fourth movie, but he's in here briefly. And I think ultimately he does. I think ultimately they do win. Because I remember like once we get to the fourth one when there's the end and Dumbledore changes it all to like Hufflepuff colors. I think that was the first time that Gryffindor hadn't won the cup since Harry had gone to school.
Well, I think, didn't they suspend the Quidditch season that year for the Triwizard Tournament?
They did, but are you talking about the oh, yeah. I'm getting the house, like, who wins, like, the ultimate thing with the rubies.
Oh, sure,
versus,
yeah.
The Quidditch.
Cup.
I heard Quidditch Cup. Sorry about that. Yeah.
And for context too, Gina, what breakdown are you working on right now?
Deathly Hallows Part 1.
Brains are scrambled.
Yeah. This is the Quidditch Cup.
Movie is doing well.
Yeah, I'm currently reading Deathly Hallows and watching Deathly Hallows Part 1. So sometimes I'm like, which one is that?
Yeah, the first two films really are obsessed with like who wins the House Cup.
Yeah.
And the movies get away from that, and I think that's another mark of maturity is like that just stops being as important.
Yeah, well, at one point they're literally like destroyed. Like when the Death Eaters are going through at the end of Half-Blood Prince, they literally like shatter the things that hold the colored jewels because Harry sees like the red ones on the ground as he's also seeing like dead bodies, and he's like, what's blood? What's rubies?
Harry, I feel like you should be better at that.
I might have added some of that in there.
I feel like there's a lot of questions that are already segueing into one of the comments about the time turner. I know you guys want to talk about that. Amy Holder was from YouTube was asking, when using the time turner, do you show up twice on the Marauders map?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would think you would if two of you exist.
Right? Yeah.
I think two of you appear on the map. The only way I would say that it might only be one. The map just bursts into flames. It's like it does not compute. Would be like if James and Sirius and Lupin didn't really know of the existence of time turners, then how would they have programmed it? But I think the way it works is like literally anyone who is physically there, as we saw with Peter Pettigrew appearing, and then later other characters, Barty Crouch Sr. versus Jr., I think it just shows anyone who's there. So I think it would show two of you.
So does that mean Newt Scamander was traveling through time?
Maybe.
Yeah. If you know Deathly Hallows, if you are a fool and consider, or not Deathly Hallows, Cursed Child and consider it canon, then during the events of the Tri-Wizard Tournament in year 4, there would be a lot of interesting names on the Marauders map on the grounds of Hogwarts. But we don't consider it canon because it's weird. Yeah, there's a lot of fun time turner logic, and let's go into it in comment. So comments. We love this segment, and we do this not to be like defensive, but really just because we like this being a dialogue, and we want you to know that we're thinking about this as hard as you are.
Listen, Eric's the nice one, I'm the mean one, John's the wild card.
I'll be both.
Good cop, bad cop. Regarding time turners in this movie, one thing that we did not talk about in the breakdown, a lot of you pointed out in the comments, is that Dumbledore in the book does not give Hermione the time turner. Minerva McGonagall gives Hermione the time turner at the beginning of the term, at the beginning of the year, basically, as kind of like a way to take multiple classes, and it seems like it's a thing. In our breakdown, I make a very strong argument, or I don't know, I make an argument, you may not consider it a good argument, that Dumbledore was controlling a lot of the events here, that he gave Hermione the time turner, that he gave it to her for a specific reason, that he knew that she would be using it for this by the end of the year, that Harry needed this whole time travel construct in order to make this important cathartic discovery about his own ability to cast a Patronus and to be able to get over the generational trauma. You are right that Dumbledore did give McGonagall the time turner in the book. And I think that may have also been the case in the movie. I have no reason to doubt that. But I think that McGonagall did not have a drawer full of time turners. She got it from Dumbledore. Dumbledore is a collector of artifacts. And I think if Dumbledore gave it to McGonagall, he gave it to McGonagall with the intent of McGonagall giving it to Hermione. And he gave it to McGonagall and used her as a conduit because if he directly gave it to Hermione, Hermione would be a little sus about that. If it just came from her nerdy head of house, as like, hey, here's a way to take classes, I don't think Hermione would be as scared of it. She would just be as, I'm just going to use this for classes. If the great Albus Dumbledore gave it to her, she'd be like, why are you really giving this to me, old man? And I think she needs those reps with it in order to just like use it to take classes, to kind of figure out the pitfalls with it in a low stakes way. I missed it. I overslept here. Oh, I was able to retake this class here. Whatever. So that when it came time to apply it to a life and death situation, she wouldn't have been as afraid of it. And so I don't think it's that big of a leap to say that Dumbledore gave it to McGonagall. But this is another example of like, I should have explained myself better just to indicate to you that I know what happens in the book. I have read the book multiple times. Gina has read the book multiple times. But this is not a Gina mistake. This is a section that I was like, oh, I have a theory for this, Gina. Let me go. And she's just like, all right, go off. So that is why I didn't mention the McGonagall of it all. Specifically, Dumbledore winks at Hermione. He must have a role in this.
He also knows, they make a big point in the book about like they are highly regulated. So that means like the ministry regulates who can have these and when. So that means that Dumbledore is the one who made the request of the ministry. The reason that McGonagall gave it to her is because McGonagall is the head of is Hermione's head of house. Dumbledore isn't as involved in the day-to-day. So it's understood that Dumbledore asked the ministry, can we use this for this? They gave the permission based on who Hermione is. And then McGonagall physically gave it to her. I think that's the distinction.
And there was specific rules that came with it. You can't be seen, etc. A lot of the theory that I presented was that Dumbledore knew what was going to happen in this day. And they're like, well, a lot of the feedback was that, well, he couldn't have because he's with Fudge the whole time. He just experienced that. It would break the time travel logic. We'd need to see multiple Dumbledores helping out. There would have to have been a second Dumbledore who was going through. My argument is that the Dumbledore who is with Fudge is the second Dumbledore. And there was initially a Dumbledore who just didn't accompany Fudge, or a Dumbledore who originally walked with Fudge who got... I don't know. But things always are the way they are. And I think specifically Dumbledore insisted on escorting Fudge that day, just knowing things were the way they were. But Dumbledore, is pointing at things. And he is perfectly timed at the way he is pointing things. And he knows what's going to happen. So I think there must be some kind of implication that there were multiple Dumbledores on the scene.
He has to know. There's two really specific moments that just tell you that Dumbledore absolutely knows what's happening. One is the wink, also telling Hermione to turn it back 3 times. I think he has a general understanding of when things need to happen in what order and all that kind of stuff. And then once everything's finished, he's walking down this hallway, and they're I can't remember the exact dialogue exchange, but he's basically oh, what happened? I don't know. I'm Dumbledore. And then he
That's exactly, you got it word for word.
Nailed it. That's my best Michael Gambon. So I think, I don't know if people in the comments are saying well, technically McGonagall gave it to Hermione or what, but Dumbledore's absolutely aware.
Yeah.
He's aware of everything that's probably happening.
My argument is that there's a Dumbledore sitting calmly in his office. And that in the future, he will time turn her back. And he is the one who insists on escorting Fudge to Hagrid's house. He is the one
twice as many lemon
who meets them in the infirmary and tells Hermione what to do. And
he told
who knows
Hermione
how far
to,
into the future he does this?
Take archery lessons so she could get really good at flinging rocks.
Yep.
No, and I loved in your room of requirements section a pitch that you made for the HBO show is to just show us also the Dumbledore version of what this day might have looked like, because I think that would be so fun to be able to break perspective from just the kids, which is not something the movies do often. I think it's something that the series could do more. Yeah, because they'll have time.
Speaking of the show, the Crispy Chip asking, do you think they will tackle the time travel a bit different in the series?
Yeah, that's a good question. This is a tough one. Writing any time travel episode of TV or any movie is so hard. It's just there's so many things that you need to keep in mind, and so many people looking at it so closely of well, this logic doesn't make sense. I don't think they'll. I think honestly, I think the show will stick as closely to what people remember as they can, because I think they're betting a lot on nostalgia. I think they're going to write this show for millennials who remember the books more so than kids coming up now. So I don't think they'll change too much of it. I do think that they will need to do a twist on everything, and whether that twist is seeing everything happening from someone else's perspective, we'll have to see. But I think that Cuarón nailed it. He nailed this whole sequence. I think if they try to do something wildly different just for the sake of difference, change for the sake of change must be discouraged. I'm on bridge now. I'm on bridge, you guys.
Always happen.
Always happen. Hey, jumping in to say we also want to thank Helix Sleep for sponsoring this video. Their Black Friday sale is running now for a limited time, and it's a great time to upgrade your mattress. Don't you want to sleep well for the holidays? Visit helixsleep.com/breakroom to get 27% off your mattress plus 2 free pillows and receive a free bedding bundle with your Luxe or Elite order. We've been sponsored by Helix for a long time, and you know the drill. 20 unique mattresses for all sleepers, free shipping, box delivery right to your house, and a sleep quiz that matches you with the best mattress. I mean, what more could you ask for? Plus, Helix has a 100-night sleep trial, so you get more than 3 months to make sure that you love your mattress, and their mattresses have a 10-year warranty. Helix also offers financing options and flexible payment plans so you can get the perfect mattress right now. Everyone at New Rockstars in the break room, we love the Helix products that we've gotten over the years, and we know you would too. If you're looking for a new bed, check out Helix Sleep. Again, their Black Friday sale is running now for a limited time, and it's a great time to upgrade your mattress. Visit helixsleep.com/breakroom to get 27% off your mattress plus 2 free pillows and receive a free bedding bundle with your Luxe or Elite order. Thank you so much to Helix Sleep for sponsoring this episode. All right, back to you guys. Yeah, another question about something that the show might do differently. Dylan B asking, do you think the show will go into more Professor Trelawney and the prophecies that she has predicted? I think the movies did her dirty.
Oh, interesting.
Did her dirty. I think there's more that they could have done with her. She has a much bigger presence in the text than they allow her to be in the films.
Yeah. I think like one of the downsides of doing something as a film instead of a TV show is like any side character, you can't spend a half an hour on a side character in a movie. You can at most spend 5 minutes on them. And I think, like as a lot of people have pointed out in the comments, it is, she's considered mostly a fraud, but you can take everything she says and see how it comes true. I mean, even, like having just finished Half-Blood Prince, when she says the lightning struck tower, and then there is a chapter called The Lightning Struck Tower when Dumbledore falls from the tower, clearly the books are like, she's a fraud. Or is she? Go back and connect these dots. And I think it would be great to see an all Trelawney thing where it's connecting everything she says.
The Lilia Calderoo
episode. This is a very Lilia Calderoo thing.
But it would be very fun.
Everything that she says, even everything that she says to Harry about like, you're going to suffer but feel happy about it, you're going to do this. Like, you can see how everything could come true. But in the books, even Dumbledore is like, divination.
And he's right.
Yeah, and we talked about this a bit in the breakdown, the Reddit observation that the 13, anytime diners of a size of 13, the first to rise is the first to die, and how true that becomes in the book in 3 different moments throughout the series. I think it's a very, very cool observation.
Interesting. And then, one more question about the upcoming series before we get back to the comments. Luke Tyson asking, do you think the series will explore Neville's character and the prophecy a lot more?
Yes, absolutely.
That is something that a question's been asked a lot the last 2 weeks that I haven't been able to ask because of other questions that seem more pertinent. But yeah, it seems like it's going to be a little bit more important for the show to dive into that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Neville's going to be as big of a character in the show as Ron and Hermione are.
Also, he has one of the best arcs. I mean, from the time that you meet him and he's like, I lost my frog. And then like at the end, he's like, I'm going to kill you, Snake. Like,
he does.
Like, it's like a great arc. Like more so, not more so than the other characters, but like if you look at him versus Harry, he's like just as downtrodden when you meet him, and he gets just crapped on for everything, but he's always just plugging ahead. Like at some point Dumbledore tells Harry, like, you saw inside Voldemort's head, but like you never turned to the dark side. Like if anyone could turn to the dark side, it's Neville, but he never does. Even more so than Harry, who's like kind of a little shit in some of those later movies. Neville's just like, I'm gonna do good stuff. I'm gonna be good. My grandma hates me. Everyone hates me. I suck at school. I'm going to kill a snake.
And hopefully we'll get a St. Mungo's Bottle episode.
Oh, that'd be so sad.
It would be really sad.
I mean, the show has to go to St. Mungo's. It's such a heartbreaking moment. And if they leave it out again, they just can't do that.
I think maybe in the original they were like, is it sad that we're about to show some kids' parents who were tortured to the point of insanity in the magical version of an institution? Should we leave this out?
Put it in.
Put it in
Kill
the
the
show.
dogs, yeah.
Make us cry.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, guys, but I think this is like one of the highest profile examples of, right? Like we've talked a little bit about how the movies sort of influenced the books for the Harry Potter series. I think this is like one of the struggles with franchise storytelling is like you don't always know how you're going to end, so it's like hard to backfill all this foreshadowing stuff. So this is like a very high profile example of, hey, we have the full story, and now we know where it's going to end. We can fill in the rest of those details. Like Game of Thrones never had the opportunity to do that because they're not finished.
You're saying that Neville is a Mary Sue.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to say.
How did he kill that snake when he was bad at stuff all along?
I think Rowling noticed how hunky Matthew Lewis was becoming. She's like, I'm going to write a moment for him.
We got to get that Gryffindor sword in this guy's hand.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was interesting how in, I think it's Order of the Phoenix, they changed the Hogsmeade scene where the first meeting of Dumbledore's army, and rather than Ginny saying that Harry killed the basilisk with Dumbledore's sword, or someone else, they give it to Neville in that scene, and I'm like, I have to wonder if they knew that Neville was going to be carrying the sword in Deathly Hallows when he cuts off Nagini's head. All right, getting back to comments. A lot of people chimed in on our breakdown to say that Peter Pettigrew did not choose to be the rat in his Animagus form. In the books, they say that the Animagus, they don't choose. It's just, it is what it is. And it's dangerous because of that, and that's why the Ministry is monitoring it. That was my mistake in the video to say that, like, Peter Pettigrew chose that in order to hit the notch on the Whomping Willow. It was convenient, like, as he was a rat, they're like, hey, the Whomping Willow has that little sweet spot when we tickle it. Hey, the smallest of us can crawl through there, and it just worked out for them.
Also, the fact that both James and Sirius managed to turn into animals big enough to corral a werewolf, just coincidence.
Yep, nice coincidence.
The writer gets to choose what the Animagus turns into.
All I'm saying is that, like, it's not written in the books up until that point that no one gets to choose what form they are, and it is possible that later on that was a supplemental material thing.
Gotcha.
So all I'm saying is read the other comments before you tell us the same 100th thing that other people have read. Remember, I'm the mean one. I'm allowed to say.
Well, and Gina is being defensive of me because I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, if there is something incorrect in the breakdown, it's because I started ad-libbing based off of my own assumptions about the way Harry Potter works. The last time I've read the first 3 books in the past year. I haven't read book 4, 5, 6, or 7 in a while. But as in the process of the research for these breakdowns, I've gone back to read sections of it. But I've read books 4, 5, 6, and 7 multiple times in my past. So that's why I feel confident about it. But there's gonna be something that I say that's wrong. It's my fault. It's not Gina's fault. and so if you see it in there, Gina didn't write it that way. I added something.
It's possible.
I'm gonna start publishing these scripts.
I love this comment from Captain Cannabis saying, "Listen, Sirius got that dog in him, and Peter was literally a rat ratting on the Potters."
It's true.
Great.
It's true.
It's true.
Yeah.
That's a completely true statement.
What does that got that dog in him mean, though?
What, Eric? Have you not been on the internet in the last
No.
3 years?
Elaborate.
Yeah.
Need a little energy for the next big ballroom dance that you're going to? Well, try One Shot Energy. One Shot Energy Chews are a healthy and convenient energy boosting supplement candy for everybody. They make energy chews, focus chews, and voice drops for when your throat needs a little TLC. The voice drops are yuzu flavored with marshmallow, honey, and peppermint. They're a huge game changer if you have a job where you have to talk all day long or if you need to sing. Focus chews help with concentration and have B, C, D, and E vitamins. Each energy chew, these guys, have 75 milligrams of caffeine to give you a boost that kicks in as you chew, and now you can get One Shot Energy Chews in a new sour black cherry cola flavor. More flavors, more fun. All of One Shot Energy's products are plant-based and naturally sweetened without a bunch of fillers and chemicals. Get started with One Shot Energy today by going to oneshotenergy.com/new rockstars for 10% off your order. Thanks to One Shot Energy for sponsoring this video. All right, back to you guys.
Will on YouTube sending in a super chat saying, "Love all the breakdowns, y'all. However, I think the biggest plot hole is that Harry Potter takes place during the years 1991 through 1998, and not a single soul talks about Michael Jordan and the Bulls' historic run."
You know what? I would like to address this actually because I have seen specifically the Chicago Bulls. I have seen some people say, like, when do the books versus the movies take place? And I think that the books very clearly, they are stated that they take place in the 90s. I think that you can make an argument, and people do. Movie Flame makes this argument that the movies take place in a different time than the books do, and they point to examples of certain cars and certain scenes are made in the 2000s, and certain national events don't line up. I think this is an example of when they first started making the movies. They said, let's try and keep it as timeless as possible and not specify.
Because they didn't want to get to 9/11.
Yeah, they were like, how did the Wizards handle 9/11? Why didn't they stop it? But I think that they did what a lot of shows and movies do, which is let's try and avoid any specifics about dates. Let's not show it on newspapers. And then as they got on, the movie makers got a little looser, a little lazier, and started putting in clearly newer cars and newer this. I think they're supposed to exist sort of out of time. The books definitely take place in the 90s. I've seen some people comment that this isn't, this can't be 1997 if this car exists. I think, listen, making a movie is hard.
It was a bit of a bummer to see the Millennium Bridge in the prologue for Half-Blood Prince because there's a Millennium Bridge. It did not exist
Right.
in 1996. But it's a cool scene visually, but I just think it's one of my gripes with Half-Blood Prince because Half-Blood Prince's openings from the Bond, which they do put in the movie, they cut out the Prime Minister scene, and I think it's one of the coolest scenes of the book.
Especially when you already have Bill Nighy cast in that role, which they did, and then they were like, "Oh, let's just put him in the next one." Like, oh God, I would have loved to see Rufus Scrimgeour coming in and big dogging the Muggle Prime Minister.
I think they didn't want to decide, is it Tony Blair or is it a different British Prime Minister? Like, is it in an alternate timeline?
You got to do the Doctor Who method, which is like none of those Prime Ministers are real, but then somehow you still reference that they existed.
So getting back to TT Music's comment, they shared on the breakdown that they like the theory that Remus carries chocolate all the time because chocolate is a poison to dogs, that he carries it to try to kill the werewolf part inside of him. Would chocolate be poisonous to werewolves too?
I've seen that theory a lot, and I did see someone in the comments sort of like refute it by saying like, well, when you're in your werewolf form, you're not like, you wouldn't be like, let me unwrap a nice little bar of chocolate and eat it. So I don't know. I like this theory. I think him just being a defense against a dark arts teacher and knowing that chocolate is healing is probably more so why he does it. But I think it's a fun theory.
I think he just carries pocket chocolate everywhere.
Yeah. He's like, I got some loose gummy
just
bears
loose,
in there.
unwrapped chocolate.
Yeah, I found a crunchy Cheeto at the bottom of my bag.
There's easier ways to poison a dog, if I'm being honest with you.
No, Hank, run!
He takes
Have a cup of coffee, right? Isn't that?
I carry a bunch of loose onions in my pockets.
I think it makes more
garlic.
I think he just kind of went to the cart with the woman with all the snacks and just bought some chocolate because it produces endorphins and it makes you happy again.
Yeah. He doesn't have a lot of happiness.
He had a bottle of whiskey in there too, but
He's got a lot of stuff in there.
it wasn't for the kids.
A lot of people chiming in the comments also to say this is their favorite film of the franchise. Also, director Alfonso Cuarón's only film in this franchise. Do you guys think he should have done more? Did he do the right thing by leaving and doing one and done?
I think it's just so hard. Like every one of those early directors at some point hit a point where they're like, I'm so tired. Please, I'm so tired. Don't make me work on it anymore. I love the one and done method. I think he came in, he put his own stamp on it. I think it's a hell of a schedule. Like they started filming Chamber of Secrets 2 days after the first movie came out. Like that's a crazy schedule for a director. I think it's less like, did he do the right thing, and more like, would his body have physically shut down if he had been like in doing, because he was probably still doing post when they started shooting it, and I think that's a crazy schedule.
Well, I already sort of mentioned like how much it seemed like the prep for this movie mattered a lot, and they did a lot. I'm sure, these long takes were blocked to hell. Like I've been watching some wicked behind the scenes stuff, and obviously there's like decades between these two movies, but you see like they take over like a gymnasium and build like the outside framework of what the set is eventually going to look like, so that they can do all of the blocking and all this kind of stuff. And so like we've already thrown a little shade, excuse me, at David Yates, but like you can tell there's more attention to detail in this film than there are in the like subsequent David Yates films, and like that. Kudos to David Yates. I don't know how you direct, those 4 films that he directed,
and the Fantastic Beasts.
And well, I'm just like, definitely that was part 1 and part 2. I don't know if you remember this. That was like a summer and a Christmas. That wasn't a full year apart. That's incredible to be able to do that. I don't think someone who puts in the work like Alfonso Cuarón does can sustain that kind of schedule.
Agreed. And I agree that I think that the later movies suffered because David Yates was like, this is good enough. This is good enough, and we have to move on.
It kind of was. I don't know.
Yeah,
I love those movies.
Yeah, like I'm not saying like, oh, screw David Yates. I just think like if you had everyone who was like an Alfonso Cuarón level of detailed director, like again, I've mentioned it before, but like I would have loved to see Guillermo del Toro direct one of these. Yeah. And I think he would have put in so much detail he was the one who convinced Cuarón to take the job. Imagine if he had done one of those Deathly Hallows or both of those Deathly Hallows, that would have been so great. Yeah. And I think that the studio sort of took the easy way out by being like, oh, we finally got someone who's willing to do this crazy schedule. keep him on for the next 7 movies.
Yeah. One other comment that I want to address. You guys were giving what I expected and thoughtful feedback that about my take that James Potter was not a hero. That Harry needed to realize that his father wasn't coming to save him. And I was pretty hard on James Potter in the breakdown. I said that it wasn't heroic to trust Pettigrew for the Fidelius charm. But really, there was a logic to it. They're like, no one would suspect Peter Pettigrew to have it. And I say that he was a bully to Snape, and that's not heroic to bully. I even softened the original version of what I wrote because I was pretty hard on James Potter. He did stall Voldemort as best as he could. And he gave Lily Potter a critical extra 20 seconds or so to figure out how to protect her child, to whip up whatever extra love she could feel for her child in that moment. He didn't fold like a chair. He put up a valiant effort, and he decided to fight in the first Wizarding War when a lot of people would go and hide. I think a lot of things to consider, though. James Potter died when he was 21 years old. He was 4 years out of Hogwarts. He and Lily conceived Harry when they were 19. Harry was born when they were 20, and they died when they were 21. How much do you change when you come out of high school if all of your friends are the same and you just enlist in a war? A war that was really beginning when you were a teenager. So yes, he probably wasn't exactly the bully that he was. He still hated Snape. I think the reason why a lot of people feel defensive of James Potter is that, you might feel like Harry's love for his parents needs to be pure, and it never changes. But I think Harry's feelings towards his parents do evolve over the course. And this film is the first moment he really breaks from just viewing his parents or specifically his father, as someone who's unimpeachable. I think the reason I use the term unequipped is it's not a judgment of James Potter. It's just at that young age, he ultimately, in this context of a wizarding war against a force as evil and powerful as Voldemort, couldn't protect his kid in that moment. And that's not his fault. That's just a tragic reality that he was in. And Harry realizes that if he's going to make it through the second Wizarding War, he has to be stronger than his dad was. And I think that's a powerful thing. That's a powerful coming of age thing, that at some point in your life, you realize you are no longer just your father's son or daughter or your mother's son or daughter. You are your own person. And you can't look to the past for all the answers. You have to find them in your present. And I think that's the beautiful catharsis that Harry realizes in Prisoner of Azkaban that we don't talk enough about. Because I think we look back at these films as James Potter and Lily Potter are saints, And they weren't. They were just normal people.
I think that's an important part of anyone growing up is realizing that your parents are not gods, right? They don't always know what they're doing. They don't always know the best way to take care of the situation that they're in and all that kind of stuff. And James Potter, we've seen a lot of not being a good person in these books and in these films. And I do agree with your take. I think he is a hero and is heroic and is courageous, right? A word that gets thrown around a lot in these books and movies because of the way that he stepped up when the situation that he was in happened to him. But that doesn't, make up for the fact that he was kind of a shithead.
If he cared about his family, he would have had a gun.
That's it for us today.
He had a wand. Come on, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I think.
Voldemort, you thought I
can't
just had a wand?
Expelliarmus a fucking gun, Evan. All right.
Dang.
Harry needs qualities from both of his parents to make it through his life, but he also cannot afford to be as reckless as his father was. And that's not James's fault. He was a young person who was trying to protect his family as best as he could in the time that he had. But Harry, every generation, and this applies to every generation of the human race, you have to figure out how to do things a bit better than the generation that came before. Because there are different challenges facing us than faced our parents.
Yes, very true, very true. Getting into some chat questions here. Prince Riley Phoenix. Hey, here's the easy question. Why do they never call Dumbledore headmaster in the films? They always call him professor, and it makes no sense. Is that just an American thing? What do we think?
No, they call him I'm trying to think if they ever. I think it's more of like a title. Like he is both a professor and a headmaster. So I think it's just slightly less formal when they say like, "Oh, Professor Dumbledore." It's just like, hey, like he's like a teacher and our buddy and the headmaster. It's just a familiarity thing.
Dumbledore seems like the kind of guy who'd be like, "Don't call me headmaster."
Yeah, please, headmaster was my father's.
Yeah. HBasso13 asking, did you three like how much the Golden Trio had changed between books/movies 2 and 3? Feel like there was a huge change in maturity as well as just general physicality. Did that kind of like age difference? Did that throw anyone off? I feel like a little. Some of that has to do with like the costuming and things like that.
Costuming is the big part, and I love the behind the scenes detail that you guys got about like when they do put on their uniforms, how they were asked to like put their uniforms on themselves and tie their own ties, and they all look super weird.
Yeah, because that's how they would be. I actually think like this more than maybe any franchise, like this franchise picking these 3 kids, them sticking with it throughout the movies and growing and looking like the ages they're supposed to be is done more successfully than any other franchise where you're like, oh, is that kid 35 years old now? Like I think they got them when they were around the right age. They did about a movie a year, as crazy as that is. And when they left Hogwarts, they were still around the same age that they were supposed to be. So there was never, like I've worked on shows before where like a kid comes back and we're like, should we say this kid died because this kid looks like he just aged 40 years in between our seasons? And like that never really happened. I think that they matured at the proper level that you're supposed to mature, which is like a year every year, like it's not like these films took 6 years to come out and then you're like, well, look at this one.
Truly.
Yeah.
Aaron Reese asking, do we think that this or any other book would have benefited from 2 movies?
That's a tough one. I generally am not in favor of splitting books into 2 movies just because I can't really think of it ever having been done successfully. With apologies to
Definitely.
The Hobbit. But like, I don't think we've ever, it's just like watching SNL where you're like, do I want this sketch to go on for 15 minutes or would it have been fine going on for 2 minutes? There are things that I miss from the books, but that's also why I tend to like TV adaptations better. I think the TV show being able to delve into it, but I'm never really, it always just feels like a cash grab when they're like, let's make this 2. And also, J.K. Rowling planning out like 7 is the most magical number, 7 Horcruxes, 7 books, 7 movies, and then them being like, just kidding, we're gonna do 8. Like, feels like a cheat.
I think, Lord of the Rings is a book, but it's in 3 volumes. So originally, Peter Jackson and Philippa Boyens and Fran Walsh wanted to do it, or I don't know. I think they always wanted to do it as a trilogy, but originally when it was at New Line.
It was Universal.
Or Miramax. It was at Miramax because the Weinsteins were like, no, do it as 2. And then they went to New Line and they're like, you can do it as 3. Yeah. But they we're going to do it in part 1, part 2. But like it's 1 book. You can divide it up.
That's true. I always think of it as You're right.
But it does have those 3 movements to it. And I don't think Deathly Hallows has 2 movements to it. I think it is 1 big sprint. And it felt a little weird. It made Deathly Hallows Part 1 as a film suffer. It has some really cool sequences, and they did a pretty good job. But like, it made a more epic 8th film because the Battle of Hogwarts could be truly epic.
Yeah.
But it did feel a little unnecessary. And I think that even if you were to split Goblet of Fire into 2 films, it still would have felt incomplete. I don't think you really could have even adapted that.
I do think of like the Lord of the Rings more like almost like a play in 3 acts. Like that's whereas like most other books I think that are not written like that. I think it's like you're supposed to take it in 1 sitting but that's why I'm looking forward to the TV show because I want to see an entire season.
And that's an interesting question that I'm sure HBO is struggling with is like, do we give season 3 15 episodes or whatever, as opposed to the 10 that we would normally allot that. Is the Deathly Hallows season going to be split into 2 seasons or have a mid-season break like all these television shows are doing now?
I think all of these seasons, you can get it done in
Just do
10 episodes for sure. I think you could do it in 8. I think you could 8 times like 50 minutes per. You can get it all done. You can cover everything.
22 episodes or nothing. 22
Yeah.
episodes.
Gina, are you a
seasons.
television writer?
Let it run
gone.
for 18 seasons.
It's over. Yeah. SP Bat, as we kind of wind down, 2 final questions here. SP Bat and Solaris 333, we're asking questions about Hogwarts Legacy. Do you think, I haven't played the game. I know, John, you've played it a little bit. I don't know, will it be referenced in any of the future breakdowns? And then also, do you think that the new upcoming series will reference the game at all?
Probably not going to factor into any of our breakdowns because we are just breaking down these movies.
I also don't think it's going to factor into the TV show.
I don't think so either.
Listen, there's so much content with these things. I'm not saying that they won't put an Easter egg in there for like eagle-eyed fans, but like when you have 7 books, 8 movies, plus the Fantastic Beasts, like you already have so much. And not everyone also plays the games and reads these and things like this. I think they have so much stuff left unexplored from the first movies that these writers don't need extra material, and asking TV writers like, okay, go and familiarize yourself with this game that not everyone has played. Like not crapping on like the game at all and people who play the game. I just think from a writing standpoint, they already have so much material to work with.
Yeah, I think they'll approach it similarly to how Star Wars writers have approached Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. They have had Easter eggs pointing to things that get established in Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order, but really when you get into the plot of these stories, it's its own thing.
Yeah.
And they understand their audience, and the bulk of the people watching this show are going to be people who read the books, who watched the Warner Brothers films. There will be quite a few viewers, probably more than we appreciate here, who did play Hogwarts Legacy. Because it was a very popular game. But I think there will be Easter eggs. And I think there may be things like ancient magic. Ancient magic is something that gets established in Hogwarts Legacy, and I think there is room to establish things like Lily's protection spell on Harry could be rooted in ancient magic. The spell that Molly Weasley actually uses to kill Bellatrix Lestrange, because it's not Avada Kedavra. There have been some theories online that it could be tied to ancient magic. It's a more like archaic form that doesn't look like the modern magic used in the normal spells. You can get into some of that, but it's not going to have major changes or major plot implications. It may just be stuff that colors the world.
Right. Like Hogsmeade is kind of a big location in the game. I could see there being some barkeeps or whatever from Hogwarts Legacy brought into the series or something like that.
Shading and not being sense. Listen, as someone who's obsessed with Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, every time I watch a Star Wars show, I'm like, is that a Knights of the Old Republic reference? And it never is, you guys. It never is.
Yeah. Oh, and one thing I want to say, a lot of you have been in the comments saying, like, why didn't they bring this up from Hogwarts Legacy? I have not played the game. I'm familiar with certain things that happen in the game. And part of it is, like, this is a massive media franchise that crosses different mediums or different platforms, right? Everyone kind of has their own most recent access point to it. And you may feel like, well, I don't want to watch a breakdown from someone who doesn't know the games. But just understand that, like, there are probably people on YouTube who have played those games and have done a lot of great Harry Potter content. And please go watch and support them. But the people who play those games may not be looking as deeply into the cinematic craftsmanship, into the way these movies are scored, the way they're edited, the shot composition, the way the camera moves from scene to scene. And that's the way New Rockstars looks at stuff. We try to be as comprehensive as we can, but we're not going to go into every little detail that gets established on Pottermore from 2018 onward. I make it very clear that we're not talking about Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, those movies, even though they establish new things about Nagini, for example, like, because these films meant to something to a specific generation of Harry Potter fans, and their fandom, even if they haven't played Hogwarts Legacy all the way through, is just as valid as your fandom is, despite how much more you've embraced the Harry Potter fandom.
Also, are y'all trying to kill us? Do you know how many hours of documentaries we're watching on each of these? They've done so many.
A final question here as we wrap it up. You know, there's been a lot of questions about like what house are you and things like that. But I love that this, kind of like which would you pick was a fun new take on this one from Brandon Russ 88. Would you rather be a child soldier at Hogwarts, Charles Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, or the Jedi Academy? See, when I first copy and pasted the question, I did miss child soldier, and I emphasized that in a very goofy way. I thought it just said child.
No, that's a great question. I personally, of those three options, I would personally choose X-Men.
Depends on who
because-
you are as
Yeah.
an X-Man.
I mean, I'm all the X-Men combined.
Oh, okay.
I'm
You're
a
an ultra
true
X-Men.
Mary Sue. Just all of a sudden have everyone. I'm the Neville of this universe. All of a sudden have everyone's powers. No, just because that show, like the '90s cartoon, just because of my age, and like watching that before I read Harry Potter, it's imprinted on my brain a little bit more.
Yeah, God.
What was the third option for child soldier?
Star Wars Academy.
Jedi Academy.
Definitely not. I would have to say X-Men as well, just because I just trust Charles Xavier the most out of the.
so.
I trust Charles Xavier
sweet.
more than I trust Yoda or Dumbledore.
Oh,
Just because,
yeah.
like,
Sweet.
Yeah.
the Jedi Academy is religious indoctrination.
Definitely don't want that.
Yeah.
The Dumbledore's army is just like Dumbledore's okay torturing Harry and sacrificing him for the greater good, and at least Charles Xavier, is fighting the good fight every time.
Yeah.
I'm also sort of like, well, I don't need the Force if I'm a wizard because I have Accio. I don't
Yeah.
need a lightsaber because I have a wand.
Also,
So
Jedi
Star
Academy,
Wars can
you
go.
don't get to give anyone little kisses. It's against
Yeah.
the Jedi.
Hey,
If you give someone a little kiss, you are you're out. They kick you out.
You want to give tiny
Discharged.
kisses to people. You're no longer a Jedi. Wizards and X-Men, smooch all you want.
Here's the thing, though. If you're if you're in Xavier's school, you're gonna be a mutant. What if you're like a fish guy?
See, that's the thing. And I don't want that, so that's kind of why I'm gonna choose.
I'm really scared to become a
I'm
fish
assuming,
guy.
I'm
Harry Potter
assuming it's
thing.
like base level. I'm assuming it's like base level mutant. I'm assuming it's like not one of the extremes. I'm assuming you're like Cyclops or something. Like you're pretty
yeah.
powerful. It's not really like you got to wear sunglasses all the time. But other than that, it's
I
not
guess that's the
really.
question: is like, are you are you in the X-Men or are you a mutant? And like,
Well, if
I'm just a
yeah.
mutant, but if
No,
I get to
if
like,
you're in the academy, you're not like a Morlock, for instance. Like the Morlocks are
yeah.
not. Like,
yeah, I also
students
don't want to
the
live in a
academy.
sewer.
And
But,
not
like,
all students at the academy join the
Go
X-Men.
on to the X-Men.
That's what I'm
yeah.
saying.
Just are there.
I don't know if I want to be an Avenger.
No, I'm
as
assuming it's like
Deadpool
base
would
level.
say.
I'm assuming
I
it's you're
need
taking
this.
mutant D
Yeah,
classes.
it does feel like this is such a great question because it's like you roll the dice on your personal like body if you are choosing to be in Xavier school. The other ones is like, well, I could be in the other schools as I am or as I was as a kid.
I mean,
however,
change your life the least.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Well,
No, I mean,
well,
like you see them as adults. They're basically like Ron's like I'm a civil servant. Like here's
I
my
think
life.
everyone
you
a
know?
podcast.
I think for this question, we have to assume you're in the most extreme child soldier wing of that school. So you're in Dumbledore's army. If Dumbledore actually did want to,
you
equip the
become a
students to
Jedi
become
Knight. You
soldiers.
become you that.
And
But
for
to
a
John's
minute-
point, you're an X-Men.
And for a minute, Well, for a minute, I was like, well, I don't want to be shoved into the room of requirement and just have to sit there for like 3 books. But
But
the room of
put me in the
requirement
danger
could be
room?
sick. Yeah, don't put me in the danger room either. Actually,
Yeah, I just think like what scares me about the worlds of Star Wars and Harry Potter is that like the ultimate form of training you can get makes you a god, basically. Whereas X-Men, all you have is
that's
your
awesome.
own power, unless you're Omega level. But most of the X-Men just have their one weird thing. Whereas Harry Potter, you can learn how to use unforgivable curses and apparate. In Star Wars, you can control midichlorians and force choke.
That's true.
Yeah, we'll leave it there for this episode of Behind the Breakdown. Did you feel like you went behind it? Let us know in the comments below. Was there more behind you wish you got?
Do you want me to yell at you some more?
Make sure to subscribe to the Breakroom channel. Get us to 100,000. Tell your friends to subscribe. We know you might be watching and maybe you're not subscribed. It's a high barrier of entry to get someone to actually subscribe, but just do it. You're gonna love it.
Also, then you get to pick what John does.
yeah, it's true. You and you alone.
If you can prove you're worth 100,000
I'll
subscribers.
become a fish. I'll become a fish guy X-Man for
Oh,
100,000
100,000. That's all it takes.
What?
Wow.
I mean,
Find me a guild.
because we were talking for some event, right? We were gonna hire a special effects makeup artist to make someone a scroll. Weren't we talking about that, or we were talking about that for the
spend that money
Breakroom?
on Secret Invasion. That would be cool.
Yeah. Well, we'll all
we had a
become
whole
fish
scroll
people.
search show. Remember those?
Yeah,
days?
remember those days? Yeah, wild.
Follow Breakroom NR on Instagram, Twitter, Threads, and Blue Sky. See you all later. Mischief managed.
See ya.